Good day, indie authors. Chris Stead from Old Mate Media here, and today I'm going to talk to you guys about bleed. What is it, and what do you have to think about when it comes to bleed? Now, start off with the quick, important lesson, I guess, with bleed is that it's not something you have to worry about with your digital books. Bleed is a print book focused thing. Digital books, don't have to think about it. However, if you're going to think about how you're going to save money, you don't want to be doing different art anyway for your digital books and your print books, so you pretty much got to apply it to everything that you do. But for print books, this is where bleed comes in. Now, any single time that you've got anywhere in your book, internal of your book, where the image goes right to the edge, then you are a bleed book. You have bleed in your book. If all of your images are like this one and they're internal and they're not near the edge by about, I think it's 0.25 of an inch from the edge, then you're a no bleed book and you don't have to worry about bleed. So that's just one quick thing. Most children's books are going to have bleed. Some chapter books that have images just about the chapter headings, things like that, they may be not bleed. But even if you just got one of them, you're a bleed book. Now, what bleed refers to is when the image gets to the edge of the page, the image needs to go beyond the page. So I'll find another one here. So as you can see here, this image goes right to the edge of the page. Now, when this is in a physical printing press, because it's a physical product, and a printing press is a big machine that can move and shimmy about a little bit, it can move slightly off its plate as it goes, and you can, if the image goes just to the edge and stops there, if the plate moves a little bit, then you get a little white line, okay? And that little white line is ugly, and it looks like something's gone wrong with the printer or it's broken, and it's just people don't want it. So to avoid that, they have this thing called bleed. So bleed means that your image doesn't stop at the edge when you're designing it into InDesign. It actually continues an extra 0.125 of an inch, which works out to about 5 millimeters or about 38 pixels at 300 DPI. And you can check my video on 300 DPI to see what that means. And it goes a little bit further. So when you're designing a book, the book is actually not, this is an 8.5 inch by 8.5 inch book, but with including bleed, it's 8.625 by 8.625 inch. And this image actually goes further than what you can see and then gets cut at what's called the trim line. So as a result, what you need to think about when you're doing about bleed, if you're preparing your own images for the book, is you need to know that if your image goes to the edge of the page, it's going to actually be extended, which means if you don't supply it ready for that, as the designer, I'm going to have to supply it, otherwise Amazon and any printer is not going to accept your book. So therefore, don't put any important details right on the edge. So, I mean, this bird's a bit inside, but if this bird, for example, was near the edge, I wouldn't want the tip of its wing to go over into the bleed area. So when you think of your canvas, of what you're doing with your art, think of the outer rim, outer 0.125 inches as not being visible, and don't put any details in there that you need to worry about. You also have to think about the fact that even with that extra 0.125 an inch, you still have to have a 300 DPI resolution on this image. So if you provide me with a 300 DPI image at this size, and I have to extend it to get it to the bleed area, then it's not going to be high enough resolution and the printer's going to knock it back. So if you don't have bleed built into your images already, the images need to be supplied at higher than 300 DPI. Not much more, like 320 or something like that, just so that it can actually be expanded to the right amount. Because if I don't reach the bleed limit when I supply the files, and if I don't reach the DPI limit when I supply the files, the printer will not accept it. So that's why bleed is important. And when you're working with a lot of artists who are just plain old artists and don't deal with the design things at all, they won't really understand what bleed means. So just make sure that when you're telling your artist your canvas size, that you take the initiative and you don't say at plus bleed or something like that. Just tell them it's actually, in this case, 8.625 canvas, not 8.5. And that way you're taking control of it and you're making sure you're getting that image with bleed and giving your designer what they actually need to be able to make your book absolutely printable. And that's what you need to know about bleed. So make sure you check in for more of Old Mate Media's indie developer guides, and good luck.